the theme of this, I'm sure you figured that out if you're listening to the full podcast, is kind of Marvel stuff. You know, we broke down Black Panther, and the end we will follow up with the Avengers. And this is kind of in preparation for, well, not really for Thor Ragnarok, but mainly for Justice League that's coming out, you know, because of all the shit with Joss Whedon that we clarified earlier in the podcast.
And other episodes.
Yeah, we have. Because of all the fucking clickbait that came out. So, Joss Whedon's script, actually the fucking date was right on the front page of the script. When he wrote it, I'm assuming, hopefully not all in one day, otherwise this dude's insane. Written August 7th, 2006.
Wow.
Is when he wrote this script. And
last time, one of the reasons why we're talking about it is because a lot of the last times Joss Whedon worked with DC. So,
now
no he's
kidding.
back. So we wanted to read this script and kind of maybe compare it a little bit.
Yeah, compare it to the movie that we actually got. There's some articles and stuff that came out, but we wanted to go through in detail on our own, kind of, get our own take of what we thought of the script. And I'm just gonna jump out first thing. Holy shit, the detail this guy puts in,
dude.
Like
the camera angles.
Yeah,
the way he describes. Okay, so we read the Justice League Mortal script.
Right.
I've kind of simmered through the Kevin Smith Superman Live script. Nowhere in those ones did you have like epic detail to panning shots, widened shots.
Right.
Just coming up, describing, there's one part where there's a lot of mirrors going on, and they're describing the panning of the camera between the mirrors and the reflection of what angles they're coming at for this one part where there's a lot of mirrors. It's insane amount of detail just in the camera structure. It's like he's going to hand this off to some other Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
To fucking do this. Like, here you go. Here's your notes. You direct this shit.
You know what it made me think of first was, holy shit, I wonder the detail that's in Zack Snyder's, or if that's just in his head. I wonder if he puts that on paper and says this is how the angle is going to be, or if it's just in his head. The second thing was, no wonder why Snyder picked Whedon too, because the way that he's kind of painting these pictures, and when you watch Avengers over again, you get kind of, it's definitely not like a Zack Snyder type film, but you can kind of see how that would be put into a script, and how he's trying to put emphasis on certain things, and the panning, and I've read a couple random ass scripts. I mean, you also read them in like high school and stuff. You have a script, and none of them said, I've never seen angle before. Of the angle
widen.
Of this,
I kept seeing widen.
Yeah,
and I was just like, man, like he's got the pan out angles and stuff like that. I'm wondering if this is because this is. I think this would be one of the first times I've ever read a script that was written by the director. It was a director writer.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So maybe
too.
That's the difference, because the other ones, Kevin Smith was the writer. Mm-hmm. The two people, the Macaulay Culkins or whatever the hell they were for the Justice League script, they were just the writers, and George Miller is directing. So maybe that's because that's what this is. He's got his panning shots. He's got his ideas of how he wants this to look already down in the script.
Yeah, so it's fantastic. He does an amazing job at painting a picture for you of how. There were a couple times where I backed up and I reread what he was saying to really understand and to picture, okay, how is this going to go? A lot of it is in your imagination and how you're kind of picturing certain things, and there's a lot that he just lays out for you. This is exactly how we're going to start at her feet. We're going to pan up. You're going to see the sword, like
silhouettes.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. So I just want to start with that. Is phenomenal. One of the things that you'll read a lot when you read about this script is people say that this is from Steve Trevor's point of view. I didn't get that at all.
I just read some of those before you got over here to our massive studio, our great studio.
Yes, exactly.
I was reading some of that it's not from a woman's perspective, or that it's actually, some of the things I was reading is that this script was sexist, which just blew me away. I'll talk about that more later, but that was some of the articles I was reading. But it came from the view of Steve Trevor, and it was the story of Steve Trevor. And I was like, no.
Yeah, that's a lot of the things that I heard before reading the script. So and then it starts out with Steve Trevor.
I actually wanted more Steve Trevor in the script, to be honest.
So he basically crashes on Themyscira. So there's a lot of parallels to the Wonder Woman movie that we got. I feel like, not that Wonder Woman movie started with him crash landing on Themyscira, but it's a little similar. The way his plane crashes, the way I'm picturing these characters are Gal Gadot and Chris Pine,
which I was at first as well. But as we get through this, the Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, I don't think would have fit. Her type of Wonder Woman would not fit this Wonder Woman at all. I think Chris Pine, Steve Trevor would have worked for this one.
I feel like you almost get a Chris Pine, Steve Trevor in this.
One of the other things about this is it basically does start off with Steve Trevor's plane having issues, but one of the things about this one compared to the other one was this set in modern times, or at least a time where they had cell phones.
Oh, yes. Yep. And cell phones and internet, which we find out a little bit later.
Yeah. And one of the things about this one was this Wonder Woman was so, I think the Steve Trevor is pretty similar to the Chris Pine version, very quippy, very, he's very abrasive and stuff like that. He says what he wants to say, but this Wonder Woman was completely, to me, is for the most, there's some connections, but this is very different Wonder Woman than the Gal Gadot. I thought she was much more serious, much more stoic, pretty much more bitchy.
Sort of. I got a lot of the naive parts of her that is kind of a take to the Gal Gadot. Her not understanding how humans can go to war with each other, and it was a little bit different. She's blaming Ares in the movie at first that we got,
right.
But in this it's automatically it's humans and mankind that's the issue, and she's kind of like appalled at it. She definitely would have to present a stronger type Wonder Woman. One of the rumored Wonder Womans was Kobe Smulders,
which is the woman that plays in Avengers.
Yeah, she's also in How I Met Your Mother. She was in that show. But she is in Avengers. I can't picture it at all.
Really?
Yeah.
I watched Avengers again, and I was like, I could see it. Because see, this is how I was picturing this Wonder Woman. It was a scowl on her face. And she definitely wasn't going to be the smiling Wonder Woman we got in Gal Gadot's version. That's what I mean. This one had a scowl. This Themyscira is so much different than the Themyscira that we got in the current Wonder Woman movie, because this one is like, it's kind of alpha-ish. Like, everybody's not at their throats, but they're, everybody's in competition on this Themyscira. There's actually discord between Hippolyta and Wonder Woman in this one. Mama Wonder, they disagree a lot, and they fight in this one. They actually fight each other in this.
They argue, and
there's another woman, Hephaestus or something like that. She's like the rival. She's always wanting to fight Wonder Woman and shit like that. She's the rival in this one. We got kind of a unison on Themyscira in the one we got with the Patty Jenkins version. Everybody kind of got along a little bit for the most part. This was definitely some discord. This was some resentment in this, and it even filters out all the way through the whole movie.
Yeah,
that there's like some major discord between all these Amazons on this island.
Yeah, this movie felt a lot
script.
Yeah, whatever. This script that we were reading felt very. This is almost a DCEU before Zack Snyder. I feel like this could almost fit right into it with some of the tones, and it has some adult oriented tones. Wonder Woman gets shot point blank in the chest, or they say the chest, but then all of a sudden it's like her arm, and it spins her a certain way, and then she's fine. She like pulls the bullet out.
Yeah, that whole thing was so weird, because like I was saying before, she was fighting Hippolyta in that one, and Hippolyta goes to stab her, and the sword breaks off on her skin.
Yeah. I'm talking about once she gets to...
Yeah, but then once she leaves the island, a bullet hurts her.
Right.
But a sword couldn't break her skin. Like, it was just kind of this weird thing where I kind of said that Hippolyta kind of said, like, you wouldn't be as strong or stuff like that. So it's actually, she kind of loses some of her powers or something.
Sort of. They're not as...
She's not as strong.
They're there. Like, so when she gets shot, she pulls the bullet out. And then she falls to her knees and passes out.
She basically also gets shot because she has no idea what a gun is.
Right.
Yeah. She's just this guy, this warlord motherfucker.
Right.
That's trying to hijack their shit. He basically points a gun at her, and she just walks straight into it. And he just pops her. And she hits the ground, and she like just pops this bullet out and then faints. And, like, she says like, you're all crazy or something like that. You're all insane. And then she face plants into the ground.
Yeah. And then we have the part where I think she's walking down whatever city they're in. It's not a real city. I didn't know
the main city of the story.
Yeah,
Gateway?
Was it Gateway? Yeah. Gateway. So, she's walking down the street and, singing, dude, I did it. No. Okay. So there's a live nude girls sign. She walks past a hooker and a hooker says, "Who are you supposed to be?" There's a guy, she like walks across the street and a guy in a convertible like veers around her and says, "Watch it, bitch."
Yeah.
And then a drug dealer ends up he's like kind of roughing up a 14-year-old, and then she kind of steps in and saves the day. So there's some stuff in here where you're like, oh, okay, interesting. This definitely is not Avengers Joss Whedon.
Yeah, there's definitely some different things. It kind of reminded me, and I kind of texted this a little bit, but there is if you ever seen it, Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
When they come out of the movie theater, he looks around and sees what the real city's like. It's got like XXX everywhere.
Right.
Hookers trying to get on the guy and shit like that. Like, he's like, "How old are you?" And she's like, never mind. Just walks away. It kind of reminded me of that. There's like a series of TVs, that old school wall of TVs inside of a window of a business playing weird shit and stuff like that. And she sees that. It's definitely a, I don't know how much would have got through for a PG-13 movie, especially this time frame when you got a little bit after the Janet Jackson thing. I don't know how much some of this. Apparently, we don't have an idea. We don't have any concept art, but her outfit is routinely referenced as being kind of skimpy.
Yeah, which I thought was fitting because a lot of people say that about Wonder Woman's outfit, like, oh, how could she be fighting in that? And the fact that they reference it in the movie several times, I thought, okay, whatever. I thought was really well done. Almost like kind of pointing out the flaw, but keeping it to this is who fucking Wonder Woman is. And she's not going to be in pants or whatever.
She's not going to be in pants. Just the way you said that, just kind of like,
she'll be in a skirt or whatever the hell I can't. Not the shitty Justice League mortal skirt, but she has no real reason other than she was helping Steve basically help him get like these supplies. It kind of like sounds like he works for the Peace Corps or something. He was a pilot in the Air Force. It never says a war that he was in. Right.
Presumably, if you're talking about current times, it may have been Gulf War or something like that, if you're using actual wars as a reference. But he was a former Air Force pilot. But now he's like flying supplies to refugees and stuff. So it sounds like he's a Greenpeace guy.
Yeah.
And that's how she gets off the island. And that's what she starts. And then she ends up in this city. And she has no real direction other than something's drawing her there.
Right.
And that's what she's talking about. That something's drawing her there. And she has no real reason. She's just trying to kind of what that Wonder Woman was trying to do, what Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman was trying to do, was she's trying to help everybody, right? Mm-hmm. She wants to help everybody, but we can't. Well, she kind of, just like the No Man's Land thing, but not as epic. Well, I mean, yeah, just not as epic. She tries to shut down what's going on. Like this, she starts interrogating that drug dealer that was roughing up she's using the lasso. The lasso's used a lot in this.
It is, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, in a pretty good way, too. Like,
there's a lot of funny parts with it. There's a lot of interesting parts.
Yeah, I thought they used that pretty well. As far as there's some corny ass humor in this, and then some stuff that I thought was pretty funny. So one of the subtle humor points was there's a hero montage, which is something else that Whedon puts in the script. He fucking puts montage.
Yep.
And then he goes through every part of the montage. The last part of the montage is Wonder Woman sees a little girl and she's like, hey, my cat's stuck in the tree. And Wonder Woman tells her to climb it. I was like
go ahead.
I just thought that was a perfect like Christopher Reeve reference,
exactly.
but also like basically telling her to shove it. Like, I'm not going to do that.
You're a strong, independent woman.
Yeah,
girl.
You
have to climb and get your own goddamn cat.
So I thought that was just made me laugh. And there's some stuff. Bacchus, which is another god.
Yeah, god of wine and like partying.
Yeah, so he has some great lines in this, some great sense of humor. Another kind of corny part was her dancing for some fucking reason. Apparently,
she was trying to draw him out.
Yeah,
she was trying to draw him out because he's the god of wine and partying.
Right.
So she gets her jig on. It kind of reminded me of Fantastic Four, where Reed Richards is spinning around and grabbing the chicks. One of the Fantastic Four movies. And there's a couple other movies where they're just dancing. She gets her jig on and she brings this god out. Yeah,
and he says that. Oh, you knew that. I've been watching you. You knew that would bring me out or whatever. But it was just weird. the way that you're kind of like reading it, like okay,
and again, this is what we were talking about was the detail. There's so much detail because there's like this club. She's in a club and there's like windows or mirrors everywhere. And this is where he got like really intense with the directing. Like, this is how we're seeing her from this angle, from the upright shot.
Yeah.
And then, but it's really actually because of the mirror, so she's much farther away or something.
Right. Yeah. And then eventually she goes upstairs to start talking with Bacchus, and she's trying to get him out, and that's where he's at. He's upstairs, and the way she's walking across the floor is see-through. Yeah. So it almost looks like she's floating above the dance floor. Yeah. And there's some great detail in there.
The story kind of flushes out a little bit more. She ends up wrecking this building where this drug hideout was. She just punches the wall. And the one thing that was kind of weird about this Wonder Woman is her powers seem to vary a lot. You couldn't quite tell if she's getting stronger or how strong she really was in this. But she basically punches this wall, and she's trying to get these people out. It's like these tenants of this rundown projects that was like also, I guess, some kind of drug building too or something like that.
Yeah, from what I gathered, the building was going to collapse anyways, right? Because from what it seemed like to me is that it was almost kind of turning into like a real estate thing where the person who's working, so the main like god villain is Strife in this, and I wanted to know a little bit more. He's not really in the Wonder Woman comics.
It's actually a woman in the Wonder Woman
right
comics.
It's Eris, who's the god of chaos, and that's the closest that Strife is kind of like a mixture between Eris and Ares, almost.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And
so
this, he's actually the son of Ares.
Yes. Yep, exactly. So he's kind of the main villain. I can't really remember what his point was.
He was just causing the chaos.
Yeah.
And he had this backing of this corporation.
Right. And so
spearhead.
Yeah, and the corporation wanted to tear down certain parts of Gateway.
Right.
And so that's where I was I think that's what happened with this club. And it was kind of interesting. There were parts that were a little convoluted, and you're trying to figure out who's on whose side. There's a guy, Keen.
That's a crack dealer.
Yeah, but
he's like the head crack dealer.
Yeah, but then he's also a good guy.
He turns good because like Wonder Woman sees something in him that he's going to turn or something. Like, he's a smart businessman. He knows what needs to be done to save the city or something like that. So she doesn't beat the balls off of him, even though she's been disrupting his enterprise, I guess. Before she's been interfering, like she dumps out a bunch of cocaine and something, and
right?
So,
yeah,
and so like that, she's fucking up his supply. But one thing about this building that she like starts to collapse is she actually fights Strife early in the storyline in this building as it's collapsing and people are trying to get out. Whedon had, of course, add his thing. It's dark, it's gritty, but tell a joke. For the God's sake, tell a joke. And of course, this guy is dragging his big screen TV out. And Wonder Woman's got to be like, "What the fuck are you doing? Get out!"
Right.
So guys can't live without their big screen TVs and shit like
that.
But
was that? I feel like that was a different building that collapsed, because there was a club that collapsed, and then this one was an apartment building.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. The apartment.
Yeah,
is the one. I'm pretty sure that's the one she punched the wall and it started collapsing.
Yeah.
She was telling Steve and his merry band of misfits. Because there's also a group of people. There's Sully, a guy. Like, he's like a doctor. There's a guy named Ben. I don't know what the fuck he does. I think there might have been one other guy that it was just like a group of random dudes that they were like part of this Peace Corps or something, because they were helping these refugees.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of going through this movie as well, and they're along for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have some good like comedic parts, I guess, is almost what they were for, or just to kind of help Steve, move along and, move the story along a little bit. But yeah, as Matt was saying, so I think she fights Strife twice. Once the building collapses on her,
and she gets her ass whooped.
Yeah, and then
she's trying to save things at the same time.
Right, and then the second time she ends up getting like
she's down in the sewers.
Yeah, and
he gets a hold of Steve. Yeah, in a very funny way, actually. I did laugh at that. Like Steve is like giving this fucking speech to her about she doesn't understand humanity. She doesn't understand what's going on. He actually has this in the script. He calls her a fucking tourist.
Right.
And then like a little bit after he says that, Strife just fucking yanks him. He's like, I've been standing here actually for 3 minutes, but I wanted to let him finish.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was good stuff. I like that. Yeah. So then eventually he convinces Wonder Woman to give up her powers,
and she gets chained by what the old Amazonians were chained up by. And this is where Whedon, I think, really hit the source material. We did this in our Wonder Woman 15 facts. I don't know if you remember this, but if Wonder Woman is chained up or tied up by a man, she loses her powers. And that was one of our 15 failed facts or whatever we did for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
And that's like from the older comics and shit like that. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of what this is. It's like the old, and she starts losing her powers after she's chained up. After Strife chains her up, he lets Steve Trevor go, kinda. It's a script, so it's not really fluid. It's just like, it's like all of a sudden Strife has Steve, and then the next time you see Steve, he's just chilling with his buddies Ben and Sully. It's just kind of weird, but he transports her to this jungle place where he just leaves her because he's like, this is where I like to be alone, and it's like it's just jungle.
And that's how it's referred to in the script is jungle. Yeah, and she's so now, and then he disappears, Strife disappears, so she's fucked. She has no powers. And there's parts where she's kind of like going through the jungle and she's trying to, find her way out. And then she's trying to like knock a mango down or something from a tree.
She tries to get a mango down. It rolls down in the river. It rolls away. She's chasing it.
Yeah. So
she's like the thing from Ice Age.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
Whatever the hell that thing is,
acorn.
Going after the acorn.
Yeah. Yeah. The little squirrel over. It's not really a squirrel. Whatever. It's from Ice Age. Yeah. But and then, of course, she twists her ankle.
Typical woman.
Yeah.
White woman.
I was just thinking typical script of like adding more, but sure.
Well, that's what they do. In the horror movies, it's white women. They twist their ankle as they run.
Yep.
That's what I mean.
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. Very true.
She just did it wonderfully.
Yeah. So she's just fucking getting wrecked, and then there's a part where she makes it to this little village. And she's being helped out by these people, and there's like 4 different military kind of
like warlord guys that are just coming in through fucking rebels and shit.
Yeah, and they're just taking shit is what it seems like.
Ransacking the place.
Yeah.
One thing I did think was funny was that when Steve was questioning her on how she knew English, she was like, well, all languages were once the same or something like that, so she understands English. But then when these guys from the jungle were talking to her, he's like, I don't understand what you're saying.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. I'm like, way to go, Whedon.
Right. Pothole.
Already. This was his first draft and only draft, so we can't hold him to too much.
Right.
This obviously probably would have went through a lot, and I hope it did kind of at the end here. But
yeah, basically
she gets thrown in a pit. She gets reminded again, who are you, by this girl that's possessed by Hippolyta, I guess, or
something.
So
apparently, as Matt was saying earlier, she finds her way to Gateway because she's trying to help, but you don't really know why, and she just feels like, because the goddess Athena, I believe, is kind of who she prays to, and she feels like it's basically destiny. And then ultimately it's kind of a destiny story that, Wonder Mama or whatever was kind of like helping her along and wanted her to get her ass kicked, I guess. And then
teach her a lesson.
Yeah, so as like a 14-year-old kid, she's like, oh yeah, go to this little area, on top of the hill or something like that. And then she makes her way out of this pit where all these
breaks the chains.
Yeah, breaks the chains. She whoops ass with all these different rebels, makes it up there, and then this is where kind of one of the corny jokes happens. There's like an old woman who says that
she's translating for the daughter, saying that she has a gift for you up on.
That's right. Yeah. So then they go up and they're like, oh, the gift must be really small, and they're like looking for it. Look on the ground. It must be really small, and it's the invisible jet.
I thought it was going to be like some bomb ass sword and armor or something.
Well, she does get new garb. Because they mentioned that like
I know she went from like rags to back to her bracelets and everything.
Yeah, so she at this point it's from her mom gave her like extra, like a better suit. So her tiara is shinier and like as it's describing as she's flying in the.
So the invisible jet is in this script.
That's a stretch. That part I was like I don't know.
Well, I think this whole ending Man,
yeah,
this ending, like I thought the first and second acts were solid. They made sense for the most part. I can see how they were structuring it, but this third act, ooh,
it's so fun. It's funny you say that because I agree. I thought the same thing. I also, when we get to it, there's a theme. It seems to be with Whedon type movies. So in the final act, she makes it back to Gateway and she wants to fight Strife. And why are you giving me that look?
I'm not giving you any look.
Oh.
I'm just listening.
Oh. All right. So, yes, thank you. Hide behind the mic, damn it. So, there's this monster That's supposed to be like a tech
chimera.
monster. Yeah.
So if you ever seen like the old Greek mythology where there's like a ram, a snake, a lion, or something like that. It's like a 3-headed thing or some shit like that with a tail. It's like 3 parts. It's man, bear, pig, but without man, bear, pig. Like it's like it's like a ram, snake,
and
lion, or something like that. And it's called a chimera.
Yeah.
And this thing. This would have probably got kiboshed from the script because this thing got stupid.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the floating Avengers things that they're jumping on at the end of the Avengers, but only with 3 heads, because that had like a very techie look to it. That's what it reminded me of.
But yeah, apparently this is a robot.
Yeah,
or it's metal and somehow.
Right, but
I couldn't quite understand. It made it sound organic sometimes, but then there's other parts where it just keeps moving because it's metallic or metal, or
and it has guns.
And it has guns come out of it somehow magically, and it's just ridiculous. So the whole point of this thing was that it's been digging tunnels underneath Gateway to collapse the city out from underneath it.
Right, was
what it was. Which, if you've seen the Defenders, that's something similar to what they did in Defenders. Defenders was really stupid. This is actually somehow surprisingly better than the Defenders version of it. Man, this third act would have got kiboshed. This got really, really stupid. But
a lot of detail.
There is a lot of detail to it. But so Steve and his merry band of misfits, Wonder Woman's flying back on an invisible jet. They're sitting in this room. There's a gangbanger, as it's put, watching him through the window. He reports to Clean, the crack dealer, the major crack dealer from there.
Clean or Keen?
It's Kleen. Right?
Was it Clean?
Something like that.
Okay, I thought it didn't have the L in it. Anyways, Clean, Mr. Clean, is probably better.
And he's kind of getting the 411 on what they're talking about and stuff. And he's like, okay. And so there's actually this person that we forgot to talk about, the spearhead. There's a guy running the corporation. It's like, or a woman or something.
Yeah, it's a woman.
Cassos or or something like that.
Yeah, Cassis.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And this guy reports to her saying, hey, Steve Trevor and all these guys are in this area. Go take care of them. So Strife pops up magically through the ground. He just comes up through the ground.
Yeah, well, in this Cassis or Callus or whoever the fuck, she's working with Strife.
Yeah, and Ares.
Yeah.
Like, they're tied into Ares. Like, she follows Ares because she gives Strife shit the whole time.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Yeah. So it's just really weird. I have a theory for this at the end. So when we get to the end, I'll talk about it. But so he comes up, and then Steve Trevor's fantastic idea was to broadcast this all over the internet that Strife exists, and that that this is what they're doing. They're destroying the city. I don't know. Apparently, he's got cameras everywhere, and it's just all uploaded.
Yeah, and this is the internet. Oh, dun.
I'm like,
and then dial-up speed or something.
Yeah, there's not enough bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
Like, it was really weird. I never quite understood. I mean, the woman that was running the corporation, Cassis or whatever, she got like, oh shit, we're fucked now.
Right.
But I guess because if the city collapsed, now everybody knows that it was them. So the real estate scam's not going to work, I guess.
Right, yeah. I didn't like the real estate. There's some stuff that was kind of out there, kind of like not interwoven properly. I feel like the stuff as far as Wonder Woman getting to Gateway, why all of a sudden it's another fucking real estate bullshit villain, and then why would Strife help? There's just some stuff that's a little weird.
Well, they bring this up in this, that a lot of the gods are dead because no one, and Whedon has a lot of he kind of talks shit about society in this, because they're asking, is Athena still alive? Probably not. Nobody, goddess of wisdom, no.
Right.
Wisdom's not used anymore in this society and shit like that. He goes on this whole thing about, he's like, oh, Aphrodite's doing well, love is doing good, but, she's kind of she's had surgeries or some shit. They were talking a bunch of shit about that. So it was gods depend on what they are to survive. People, and so I guess that's chaos. And then hopefully war helps Ares and shit like that, because he's the spawn of Ares. I don't know. It was just really weird. So basically, to kind of speed this up, this third act becomes a huge fuckfest of just explosions and random shit. They call the Chimera up, which is supposed to be 100 feet long, but I guess it's inside this building. It doesn't seem to be breaking through the building yet, but it's inside
eventually it does. Eventually it's flying around.
Yeah, it's flying or it's slithering. I kept seeing it's a snake and it's moving real fast.
I didn't get that either.
I needed a picture of it.
Yeah.
And it was really bugging me at certain points because it's I needed a picture of this thing because there's a lot of things that are not making sense. So basically, the best thing that Steve and his little merry band of misfits can do after the cameras are destroyed is, hey, let's get in a van. Let's go A-team on this.
Right.
And just fucking peel out. And so this thing is chasing them down the fucking way with the van. It's catching up to them. It's ramming the thing. Strife jumps on top of the van, puts a spear through, stabs Steve.
Yeah, stabs another dude in the leg. Yeah.
It's just like, it's all this chaos. And then, of course, the invisible jet comes flying in. But the way Whedon writes it, again, major details, like it starts appearing, it's not appearing depending on the light and shit like that. I don't think it would have been a corny if, like, you think of Super Friends where there's an outline. I don't think it would have been like that. I think it would have been similar to like Spider-Man Homecoming where that reflection kept happening.
Yeah, but seeing someone flying it is where I'm like, how do you pull that off?
And then what she was doing, so she's basically diving in and out. From what you can tell, there's no weapons on this thing, but I guess she's like grabbing the monster, the chimera, with her lasso at the same time somehow.
Well, eventually, it seems like her wing stabs it through the...
Slices a head off.
Right. Slices the head off.
Ram head off.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. I needed a picture of this thing.
Right.
I'm like, all right, well, how many fucking heads does it have?
Yeah.
Like, what does this thing look like?
Well, so how he describes it early is I thought one head with these different abilities. It's a lion that has like ram horns and can breathe fire. Then eventually, I think because of the third act, I think it has 3 heads. Yeah, and that's the only the only reason I got that was because of the 3 heads. Because chops off one head, and then it like the way that it describes it is the head falls back and it's like barely hanging on. Kind of is how he describes it, and then she like stabs it in the belly with one of her wings, and she's like slicing and dicing basically with her wing.
She starts slicing it up with the sword. She breaks the head off. Again, mechanical. Like she holds the head up in the air, and it's described how big the head is compared to her.
Right.
But she's holding this thing in the head. Then Strife comes in. They start fighting. There's kind of a cool little moment where Strife and her are fighting. Strife is obviously a lot stronger than her. He is a god. Or some kind of demigod, maybe a half god. I'm not quite sure what he exactly is.
I think he's full god.
Okay, because there's a comment later that's kind of confused me. But basically, they're fighting. He has his spear. He's about to stab her. She stops it, and Steve starts shooting him with bullets and just annoys him. So he disappears.
I didn't like this part.
He disappears, and Wonder Woman grabs the spear, throws it at Steve.
Right.
And he appears in front of Steve. Strife does, and
then gets
stabs.
stabbed. What luck. What if he appeared behind Steve to grab him?
And she threw it hard enough, it would have gone through Steve. And nailed him. Two sacrifice. And then basically the light breaks up, and Ares pops through like this portal. It's like a silhouette, and he's like, "Woman, what are you doing? How dare you shed my son's blood?" or something like that. But then he's like, "You can never kill a god." I'm like, she just did. That's what confused me.
Oh, okay.
It's because he says you can't kill a god, and like, well, Strife's the god, and she just killed him. Like, like it kind of confused me. So it made me think: is he not a full god? Is he demigod? Like, what is he? I don't know. So then Ares is kind of teased, and then apparently, of course, Whedon, dark, grim, tough, sad, whatever, all that, but tell a joke, and then a piece of concrete falls on the thing and ends Ares' connection.
Basically
that AOL connection.
Right.
And fucking. So it kind of ends like that, and then it basically
fades the block.
Steve is still dumbfounded by the invisible jet.
Oh, that's right.
And then basically she makes a comment about wanting to fly without the jet. He's like, "Well, you can't fly." "Well, can't I?" And like,
can't.
And then it goes face to black.
Takes off.
So one of the things I did like about this, I really did like this Steve Trevor. Again, I could picture Chris Pine. He had some of the funniest things. I read the script and I was actually laughing out loud.
Yeah.
It's like in the beginning when he was on the Themyscira, they kept calling him It. And he's like, "I'm not an it. I'm Steve. I'm a Steve." Right. and then when the Hippolyta asked him, "Will you ever tell anybody about this area or what you saw here?" And he's like, "No, Scout's honor." And then she puts the lasso of truth on him, and he's like, she's like, "Will you ever tell anybody?" He's like, "No, I won't tell anybody." Or like, "Will you honor what you just said?" And he's like, "Yes, but I wasn't a scout." Because the lasso makes him tell the
he said Scout's honor.
Because he said Scout's honor, then he admits that he wasn't a scout. But everything else is too. And then he was talking to the Amazonians, 20th century called. It's kind of cool because they're all archaic and shit. And then there's the part where he thinks he's about to be condemned to death. and Wonder Woman busts in there for this ritual fight with Hippolyta to save him.
Oh,
But
yeah.
all he sees is panthers first, and he's like, "Not cool. You're going to kill me with panthers? Panthers? That's not quick." Because Hippolyta tell him it will kill you quickly,
Right.
and he sees that's not.
Yeah,
quick.
he's like, what?
And then Wonder Woman makes her comment that she's going to fight her mom for the ritual to save Steve's life, and he's like, "Woo! What?" Like, that's just how it was written in the script. It was just a lot of funny parts with Steve. He falls on he's telling Wonder Woman about how he things, and he's like, "I can't imagine. I want to see you naked every time you turn around."
Yeah,
and he's like obsessing. He's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And he's confused, and then he realizes he's sitting.
Yeah, on the lasso. He's like, we really shouldn't be leaving this lie around. Yeah,
it was pretty funny. So the Steve parts were really good, but again, the Wonder Woman ones were a little weird. They you definitely needed a certain woman for this. Like I said, I don't know if the Gal Gadot version would have worked for this one. But it's a script for a reason. It was his first draft. Yeah. I don't think it was sexist. There was one comment. I was trying to find the sexism in it, other than the mention of her costume. There was like one part where one of the Merry Band of Misfits was like, "How could you shoot something so tasty?" when the warlord guy shot her. And so he says, "Why would you shoot something so tasty?" or something like that. I was like, okay, I guess that's kind of a misogynist comment,
right?
Talking about Wonder Woman's tasty. So I really don't know what it was that I thought it was from the Wonder Woman's perspective. I thought the part where the chain showed like woman perseverance, just perseverance in general to a character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Striving to be better, to overcome your challenges in life and shit like that, to become better. I thought it was a decent Wonder Woman story. The ending, though, that whole fucking thing was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a cluster.
One of the things that I just found so interesting about this, just reading this thing, is like I felt like this was supposed to be a Superman story, because there was talks about her being hope, that she could bring positivity to the area, make things better. The one person running the spearhead just reminded me of Lex Luthor.
I don't know if it was supposed to be
not supposed to be, but I just felt like
it was kind of a ripoff.
This is kind of like the Superman story I think that people would like.
Yeah,
like this campy kind of Superman story. It almost felt like Steve Trevor would be Lois Lane with all the one-liners.
Yeah,
he's always in trouble and shit, and she constantly is saving him and shit like that.
Yeah, that's true.
And the cat in the tree thing just reminded me of that. Just how she was unsure about her powers in certain stints. Like, can she do this? She like punches a building, and she's always worried about people's safety. She wouldn't let an innocent person die. Mm-hmm. These are not warriors. Blah blah blah. She goes on about that, and
she doesn't kill. Yeah, she makes that a point.
Yeah, she drastically.
Yeah, and unless it is a military warrior or something like that. She mentions that. She says if it's on the battlefield, then you can kill him basically.
So overall, the script was cool. First draft, Joss Whedon. I thought the detail in this one, I liked reading this one because of the detail.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool. So, I'm kind of glad it didn't get made. A little bit. I don't know. That third act though, that needs to be fixed.
Yeah,
that's what I keep focusing on.
I think it. As we've talked about with some of the other scripts, that I'm sure there was an evolution to it. I don't know how much it would have been changed. The third act is a little out there. There's some parts where I'm like, I don't know if that would have worked, but overall I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I was thinking. I wasn't sure. I'm like, okay, you usually go into these like, all right, it got canceled for a reason. And when you're like reading Justice League Mortals, you're like, okay, I could see why that got canceled. This one, I could see it getting, pushed along a little bit further. So I was kind of surprised.
This is a weird time frame for fucking DC. They were really pumping out. They were really trying different shit. And they tried different villains too. Yeah, that was Strife. Like I don't. Right. And then in that Justice League Mortals, Maxwell Lord. Yeah. Just a lot of weird choices. Circe was in this. Circe, from what I understand, is Wonder Woman's big foe. It's her Negaduck. But she was in it, but she was pretty much just a bystander. She was just another Amazonian. Right. And she kind of watching this, and she sees Ares at the end. For now. So you can kind of see if there would have been a 2, it was kind of setting up for this Circe Ares team up. Right. Type thing, because she was watching it from a distance. Yeah. And shit like that. So I thought that was kind of cool, but this thing is not sexist, and it's not as terrible as everybody says. Everybody's just like, they're super comparing it to the Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman, which is fair, but at the same time, And there's different stories being told here.
There is. And there's some similarities. Yeah. There's some stuff where...
It's a Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
It's Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So to kind of conclude this discussion about Joss Whedon's Wonder Woman script, he had a couple quotes, a couple things he put on his blog, and a couple other things that came out that he was talking about his version of what he thought Diana was. Now, we talked about how Colby Smulders was first in line to possibly take up the mantle of Wonder Woman, but in his quote, he talks about a different type of woman that would have been his type of Wonder Woman. Joss Whedon says, she was a little bit like Angelina Jolie. He laughs. She sort of traveled the world. She was very powerful and very naive about people. Fact that she was a goddess was how I eventually found my into her humanity. Kind of, I think it's a typo there, but that's what it says. My into her humanity and vulnerability, because she would look at us and the way we kill each other, the way we let people starve, and the way the world is run. And she'd just be like, none of this makes sense to me. I can't cope with it. I can't understand. People are insane. And ultimately, her romance with Steve was about him getting her to see what it's like not to be a goddess. What it's like when you are weak, when you do have all these forces controlling you and there's nothing you can't do about it. That was the sort of central concept of the thing. Him teaching her humanity and her saying, okay, but we can still do better. One final quote real quick. Back in 2007, the filmmaker broke the news that the studio just wasn't feeling his version on his blog. And his quote was, I had a take on the film, well, nobody liked. Hey, not that complicated. Let me stress first that everybody at the studio and Silver Pictures were cool and professional. We just saw different movies. And at the price range, this kind of movie hangs in. That's never going to work. Non-simpatico. It happens all the time. I don't think any of us expected it to this time, but it did. Everybody knows how long I was taking, what a struggle the script was, and though I felt good about what I was coming up with, it was never gonna be a simple slam dunk. I like to think it rolled around the rim a little bit, but others may have differing views.